where to start. So, who am I? I'm Andrea Mauro. I work for a small Italian company as a consultant in IT, virtualization, all the infrastructure part. So, what we will say in this session, I would like to say something about the software-defined storage vision from an approach from VMware, and in general about this kind of approach to storage. VMware has mainly three different areas of interest. One, and probably is the historical part, is about the data center and how it can be improved with the new, some 1 year ago, the new definition of software-defined data center. The second one is the hybrid cloud approach that means mainly integrate your data center with some public service that can be provided by third-party company with the logo vCloud compliant, or directly by VMware that has own data center and own service with the VMware hybrid cloud service offer. The last one is the end user computing area, and mainly is all about VDI, profile management, mobile, bring your own device, and so on. This, of course, is the area of I hope that will be not a boring session, also, but I have to give some information about what those terms mean. For example, what is software-defined data center or software-defined something is everything that is trying to separate the control plane from the data plane. For a data center, this means find something to manage in a friendly and in a flexible, in agile way. This kind of data plane, compute, storage, network, but also availability, security, and so on, with a unified control plane. This means, from VMware point of view, a set of products. Some are in existing suite, some are third-party components. For the storage part, actually, the Virtual SAN is a third-party still from VMware, but separate SKU, not actually included in existing bundle. And for storage, we have also to try to specify which kind of type of storage we can have, and what does it mean scale in versus scale out, because those terms are not used always in the same way. What I usually mean in scale in is that we have a storage with a common front-end part that goes to the servers, and we add new disks in new chains or new boxes that are connected to the controller part. Okay, most of historical storage works in this way. Scale out means usually that each storage array has its own front-end part. Front-end interface are SCSI, SAS, not so common in this case, but fiber channel and so on. These are the connection through the servers. The backend part here is usually not existent, or at least is included in each storage member. And in what I usually mean with scale out, there is no shared storage part. Of course, there must be a shared network because we have to provide some kind of unique or unified or flexible access to these members, like a single cluster or a single virtual storage and so on. But of course, we have also to provide redundancy of the data across those different members. And all this kind of activity are done by networking connection. Okay. So scale out works in this way. Scaling or scale up work in this way, and scale out in this other way. Also, we can have different type of name for different type of approach. Usually in scale out area, where we can have converged solution, where maybe converged mean network converged for the storage part, for the front-end part, or other type of converged where we can have converged me in terms of computing and storage that converge in a single system. In this case, this system can also provide computing power for virtualization, for example, and also, of course, storage power. And we have a lot of different approaches in cache, flash, and similar technology. You can use flash on storage side. We have full flash storage that in several cases are just a scale in or scale up approach, because we have two storage processors, two controllers, what we want to use as a term to define the central unit of the storage and all the flash memory. Or some kind of hybrid approach where we can use common spindles with new flash memory or SSD solution, just to take the best of both worlds and try to find some solution like multi-tiering approach, or just using SSD or flash for caching and so on. Or we can have flash or host on the host side using PCI Express flash card, SSD, or there are new memory for new motherboards that can bring in your memory slot flash memory that are persistent compared to common memory. And also in this case, we can have different approaches only on the storage side, sometimes only on the host side, or at the host side there are some consideration, because if we have a cluster, it would be difficult to implement write acceleration on the cache that must be consistent across the cluster. But anyway, both approach can be used, and sometimes also some type of hybrid approach. So what is software-defined storage? Again, some kind of software that can manage the hardware part. Yes, but it's not so easy because all storage are just software, because mostly are on commodity hardware, not all, but mostly are on commodity hardware, and also the storage that are on some kind of dedicated hardware has a lot of firmware or software part that define exactly the storage, but this does not mean that is software-defined storage. The second definition or the second edition can bring more information. We must be able to decide and manage through policy software-defined storage. Yes, this can be a better definition, but again, does not necessarily define exactly what is software-defined storage, because usually we can have also other terms like terms that are used in cloud computing. We need some kind of abstraction, but this is common in storage. We need agile, so must be really fast in the operation that we can do, and we probably need or may need automation. Okay, so possible to scripting or to control by different, for example, web services or so on. So almost all storage are software, but this does not mean that they are SDS. Hardware commodity is mandatory, is common, is used in most storage, but is not really mandatory. If something is flexible, doesn't mean that is SDS, maybe, probably, because flexible can be near to agile or something similar, but does not itself does not mean that is SDS. Scale out mean that is SDS, probably, but we need to find how scale out works, which kind of scale out is, and which kind of tool we have to manage, control, and automate the infrastructure. And probably this is more interesting. Actually, SDS is more pushed by technology approach or marketing approach. SDS is like SDN. It started from technology approach. SDN was started from university research, from huge research, and then has become really interesting and really a marketing name. Okay. SDS is similar, it's trying to do something similar, but of course marketing is there, so a lot of people say MI is an SDS solution or a software-defined storage solution, so on, but it does not really mean that it is. What is trying to push VMware with his SDS solution? Mainly, VMware with ESXi as computing power. You can build a VMware cluster, but you usually need a shared storage, and of course a shared network for the infrastructure. With the VMware approach to SDS, that is called Virtual SAN or vSAN, those nodes become also storage nodes. So this is an hyper-converged because storage computing are, and the hypervisor of course, are on the same nodes. And this probably can be interesting compared to other similar solutions, because there are several other similar solutions. In this case, the services, the functionality is tightly integrated inside the hypervisor. So, compared to other solution, is not a VM, a virtual appliance that we have to build, to deploy, to manage, to keep safely, because we cannot move this kind of VM across, and anyway we can't, but is dependency. A VM can start only after the hypervisor started. So is a possible dependency that we are creating. In this case, all the function except the management function to configure the environment are inside the hypervisor. Could be good, could be worse, it depends, but is a real hyper-converged approach, because in this case it is the hypervisor that provides this kind of function. Okay. And mainly we can have, we must on each node traditional storage, traditional spindles, and some kind of flash storage, SSD or other flash technology. And is a really scale-out approach, because we do not need any shared storage. Actually, we cannot use any shared storage. It doesn't make sense. A lot of people have built labs with shared storage. For example, using Dell Vertex, okay, you have a converged system, a physical converged system with a shared storage and some blades inside the same chassis. But this is a shared storage. You can do something similar, yes, but make no sense, because you use a shared storage to just provide dedicated LANs to each blade. For what? Is not necessary and make no sense to have a shared storage. And is something that is, of course, flash optimized or flash aware, because it uses the flash level as an acceleration for your operation. But most important, again, could be good, could be worse, it depends, but is VM-centric. Okay, so you work at VM level to define which kind of policy you want to build. You have some kind of storage profiles, storage policy that you build on, you assign on each VM. That means that one VM can have some kind of redundancy, other different type of redundancy, and so on, different type of policy for each VM. Of course, usually we can work on those kind of policy about capacity, performance, availability, a mix of these set of usually requirement in VM functionality. How can change the existing storage approach, at least for the VMware world? Of course, this is tightly integrated inside ESXi, cannot be used with other hypervisor. Okay, this probably is one of the bad news, but it is a specific function for VMware, like storage spaces are a specific function for the Windows environment. In this case, we have a flexibility in how we can assign the storage to a VM, and how we can assign all the policy storage related to a VM. So this can be useful to make a policy-driven VM data center where with other functionality like sphere replication that is still policy-driven on VM-based approach and other. You can build a software-defined data center that is VM-centric and not necessarily infrastructure-centric. Okay. And how you can build your virtual SAN? Actually, there are two different approaches. You can choose an existing hardware that is reconfigured for vSAN. Okay. Mainly, this means only, or usually, lot of local disks. Okay. We can commonly have on a 2-unit 24 disks. That is interesting enough. Maybe not so huge as some kind of other solution, but in 2 units, considering that this will be also the computing unit, so we can have probably 2 or 4 CPU, because there are also in 2 units 4 CPU, and 1 or 2 tera of RAM, of memory. So this can be absolutely interesting. And means that there is some kind of EXXI embedded, pre-installed or something. Yes. Because it's just inside the hypervisor, this kind of function. Okay. Otherwise, we can build our system. That means we build about a server with lot of local disks, computing power as we need for this kind of node, and we install ESXi. We have to buy some kind of SSD disks, but again, or PCI Express card, depending. Some kind of spindles, and of course, a controller for the storage. But if we buy a server, probably those kind of approach are just the same. The only difference is we have a ESXi on board embedded. We install the ESXi. In both cases, the VMware each hardware compatibility list is the reference, because mostly of what is compatible with EXXi can work with virtual SAN, because it's just the same. Okay? And what do we really need? At least 3 hosts. Okay? This minimum number is not so interesting for really small cases, but is the minimum number to make this kind of solution reliable. Because what can happen if we have one node in maintenance mode, just to do something, for example, BIOS update? We have still 2 nodes that make sense for data redundancy, cluster redundancy, availability, and so on. With only 2 can be really different, because in this case we have to take care not only on the computing, but also on the storage. And storage is something that is not so good if you lose something. Okay? Usually you can lose a VM, maybe, but you cannot lose its data.
Meaning 3 hosts at the minimum. If one host goes down, we lose computing and storage. Does that mean you have 3 copies of each block or each data fragment?
Sorry, can
Do you have 3 copies of the data, meaning...
you can choose, yeah.
You can choose them.
Yeah,
You can choose. You can choose the redundancy level to have 2 copy or 3 copy,
Okay.
what you want. Of course, it makes sense only with some number in the cluster. But with 3, you can choose to have a VM without any data redundancy, but it doesn't make much sense unless for testing. Or 2 copy. Maintenance, when you put a host in maintenance, is something that is not so fast as a normal cluster. Because if you have some data here and maybe is a copy of a data here and you choose to have only 2 copy, to be sure that you still have 2 copy, you need to move some data. Okay? So, a maintenance operation with a small cluster may require time. With big cluster, it depends, but still may require time because you have to move some data. If you lose one node for a fault, and predictable fault, in this case, data are usually provided with other redundancy, but must be rebuild some kind of redundancy. Yes?
Does it support RAID, or is it like Windows storage spaces where you just...
It's similar to storage spaces. I have a
So no hard RAID?
Best without any RAID, or RAID 0 at the local level, I say. In the local, because in this case is slightly different. Storage spaces, we have shared storage, okay, is a shared JPod. In this case, all are standalone JPod. So we can have standalone JPod with a stupid SAS card or a RAID card, but in this case we have to consider, makes sense that the RAID card make caching of the data? Probably not, because there is the flash tire that is making the caching. Makes sense that we have some kind of internal redundancy of the data? Probably not, because we have a network redundancy of the data. So RAID 0 in this case is the best, but probably we have also to tune the controller, the RAID controller card, to disable unnecessary acceleration that usually is read ahead or write back through in some cases. Usually we going to a write-through approach, and also the chunk level can probably be tuned to considering also the block size of VMware. But yes, in this case, we don't need a real powerful card. A cheap SAS card can work enough good. And usually, in those cases, this is not 24 disks, but in 24 disks 2 unit, usually we have at least 2 different backplanes. Could be nice to have more throughput, to have maybe 2 SAS card internal, just to have the 2 backplane, maybe put SSD on one or mixed. It depends. Each vendor can have different suggestions on how increase the throughput, but usually it's local storage. Local storage has enough throughput on it. Okay? And new generation of SAS is really closed, so we can have a switch from 6 to interesting new throughput.
What happens with the, when you've got a proper SEN,
Yeah.
you've got acceleration like VAI.
Right, right. In this case, is something that is no more called VAI because it's not something that is storage. Is EXXI that is working on it. So fee provisioning is not provided by the storage, but is provided by VMware. Acceleration and operation are provided by EXXI. So you cannot accelerate something using EXXI. So this kind of operation are hypervisor operation. Okay, so no, you don't have this kind of term, but of course, considering that is at hypervisor level, you have some kind of tuning about this. Which is the maximum number? Yes.
It's because with VAI you offload the computing to the storage, but here
It's
the processor of the storage
the
is
same.
the same processor of the hypervisor, so
Exactly.
doesn't make much sense.
Are you limited to 10 gig Ethernet, or
No,
can you also
you
use
can use
InfiniBand?
1 giga Ethernet, okay, but you have to design your network to be sure that the backend connectivity for replication, for data replication, has enough bandwidth. Because
Can you use InfiniBand?
you
Is that supported?
InfiniBand actually not so.
It works,
It
but
works,
it's not
but
officially
it's
supported.
not in HCL. You can use also 40 giga, of course, of Ethernet, but
Most.
actually is mostly on Ethernet.
Or
But-
most likely you can have InfiniBand, the driver from the manufacturer to have TCP/IP running on top of InfiniBand, and then you can use this because then it's TCP/IP. Most,
Yeah,
most
but,
vendors has it,
but probably it doesn't make sense with
But it
voice
doesn't
connection.
induce latencies. I saw situations.
Yeah,
So far, the king is fiber channel. No one can beat that.
of course your Ethernet could be cabled with fiber, but
Throughout
the
the years,
latency
IOPS no.
is of course not the same, but is a different approach. And note that if ADM is local virtual disk in the same node, that is proximity approach, locally approach, in this case you don't go through network. For all, network is mainly used for data replication, because if you choose to have some kind of redundancy, the data block is saved, is acknowledged when is right on the first SSD, and also on a replicated SSD.
So it doesn't matter where I access it, because it has to be written 2 or 3 times anyway.
Yeah, but on the background. So
No,
No,
it's
it's
not in
not-
the background.
You
If
can
No,
if you
yes.
have only
Yeah.
2 data replicated twice, you can have your data here and your data here. But maybe your VM is here. Okay, it's not locally, but it's something that can be handled to have your VM here or here where you have the data. In this case, doesn't matter where are the data. So
when one node goes down,
yeah.
then the other one will run from the network and then copy the data to
Maybe the other one is the other one with the replicated data.
Yeah, then
So,
you will.
In this case, are
start
still
there.
local, but maybe
He's missing some data.
you missing some data.
Yeah.
You can have
But he will run the VM on a new server. He will start there the VM or. So when ASXI goes down, too.
yeah. In this case, is going through network. Okay. But if all works fine, usually network is for replication. But can be also. It's like cluster share volume. It can be used in case of a fault also to redirect your disk operation.
What's the protocol used to transfer or to communicate with the different nodes? The storage protocol, indeed. Which protocol?
It's just TCP/IP on a dedicated port. It's just internal communication. It's not a specific protocol like SCSI and so on, but for sure it's something that encapsulate blocks
Within Ethernet, but
over Ethernet, yeah.
so it's sometimes some special type of SCSI over Ethernet, but not iSCSI, or?
No, it's dedicated. Is you have each ESX have communication, client-server communication. So is a raw protocol, but over TCP/IP, because you must configure a specific interface for the communication, but it's something encapsulated inside TCP. Okay, not necessarily SCSI. VMware does not say which kind of protocol is, because it's just put a block inside the TCP packet. So you don't need the whole iSCSI overhead, but is something similar, of course. So we need disks, at least one kind of flash, disk, SSD or PCI card, one kind of spindles, of course one or more network cards, if you use 1 giga, more to be sure also to separate, to isolate the different traffic, to have front-end communication for VM, to have cluster communication for vMotion, for example, for live migration of VM, and backend communication for the storage. Or you can use one or more 10 giga. If you use the same networking for the 10 giga approach, you must, it's better if you provide some kind of quality of service and priority of the packet.
So it doesn't work with only PCI or SSD. You need a spindle, right?
Yeah, you need one and one, because spindle are just for, to simplify, archiving. Okay,
Right.
I put all the
Slow
data.
storage,
Yeah. But I need at least one and one.
So it can be 2 SSDs also?
I can use two. In the terms of vSAN, we have some kind of group. Okay, in this case, to use 2 SSD, we need to make 2 groups.
Yeah.
But it's not an issue because you can have more groups. We can use more, of course, spindles, because maybe we will use nearline SAS or SAS disks and so on, just to have to reach the capacity that we want. There are some schema on how to design the part of SSD, how much, usually 10%, but you can find a good formula on how design your capacity and your performance. Disks usually works fine, and this is the part about the write controller. Okay, you need to have SAS controller or pass-through or vSAN aware or write 0 write controller, just because you need to have a direct access to the disk. But write 0 could be good, because in this case the pool, the storage pool, is delegated to the write controller. Okay, actually you don't need really to see each single disk except for the flash. You can choose, if you have a write controller, to make one write 0 for each disk, but is the same and probably better have one single write 0 for all the disks.
But then the downside is that when you use a single disk, you lose all the RAID. You RAID 0. Instead, if you have a JBolt, you lose a disk, you only lose this disk.
Yeah, actually, it really depends how you have one disk, but you have one disk, and doesn't matter the size of the disk actually, because you can pull together. But of course, you cannot see anymore, for example, the status of the disks. But in this case, you need really to have a SAS disk to see effectively the status of the disk. Yes?
Let's say you have 3 nodes, and each node has, I don't know, 10 disks, hard disks for data, and 1 or 2 flash, okay?
Yeah.
And that's on each node. And you're not using RAID 0. So these 10 disks are individually being presented to the vSAN.
Yeah.
And one of the disks fails. That's going to happen, no matter what you do, okay? What do, will vSAN has to copy all of the data from the other node to this node, or it is intelligent enough that will say, on this disk I had these blocks, let me go get the other blocks and get them over here.
Yeah.
Because if it has this intelligence, it would be very stupid to use RAID 0.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then you have to copy the full 10, let's say 10 disks of 2 terabytes, you've got to copy a full 20 terabytes, and not only 2
Exactly.
terabytes.
But actually, this is the first version, and for example, in the user interface, you don't have really details on the status of each disk. Like you can have in storage space where you can see if each disk is healthy. You have an aggregated health status in the host using the monitoring of the host, but you, in this version, at least in the user interface, of course in command line you can have more data, querying the smart capability of the disk. You don't have really details on how single disks are going. So when those will be provided, of course, single disks, just to be sure to be more granular.
If it works that way, because maybe it decides to copy the whole virtual machine.
Exactly.
No one knows exactly the internals.
Exactly. But, okay, thank you. But actually, you don't have, at least in the user interface, this kind of granularity. And it's a pity, for example, because you have to monitor in other way the health status of SSD or flash memory, because you have to also take care of this to see how much here you still have, or how much space, useful space you still have. About networking, mainly, as I said, you can use both. Of course, 10 giga is recommended, but is not mandatory. If you use a converged network, you must provide some kind of quality of service. You can provide on physical side, on your physical switches, or on virtual switches. The nice aspect is that on VMware, to have quality of service on network, on virtual switches, you need the distributed virtual switches that are available usually only in the Enterprise Plus edition, that is the costly one. But with vSAN license, you have also distributed virtual switch license, just because it's really important to provide some kind of quality of service. If you use a converged network on the same physical switches, of course. Otherwise, if you have dedicated switches, it doesn't matter. But probably you are in the 1 gig scenario. And how enable? It's really simple. It's a cluster function, so you can only configure via the new web client that anyway will be in the next version the only client, so is not a big issue. Just to check this option, and of course it's not enough to configure the interface that you will use for data communication, data replication, that are just, if you know vSphere, are just a new type of VM kernel interface. A VM kernel interface is just connected to one virtual switch and could be connected to one or more physical NICs to go to the physical switches.
Can you use multiple VM kernel interfaces, meaning multi-channeling?
Actually, the motion is multi-channel. vSAN seems that is not actually multi-channel, this kind of interface. I not make some tests about it, but there is no reference, so it's not clear actually if it's multi-channel. But considering that motion is documented how you configure for multi-channel, VMware FT fault tolerance is not multi-channel. Seems that Nether Virtual SAN actually is multi-channel for this reason. 10 gig would be better. Yes?
The SSDs, is it only used for write caching, or it is also can be actually used for tiering?
For write back is used the 30% of the size.
Of the SSD?
Yeah.
And that's fixed, or you can play with that?
You can change with advanced settings, but by default is this value.
So if you have a mix of performance and hard disks, so you've got some hard disks 15K and some other hard disks 7.2K, will they be treated the same? Or it has
No,
an auto tiering?
If you have a different performance in SSD or on the spindle, it's better build different groups, because actually you have only those two levels,
So two
flash
tiers. Okay.
and disks. But if you have some difference inside flash or disks, build different groups. Okay. Just to be sure that in a cluster you have a predictable performance on each node of the cluster. Then you just turn on and sorry, I forget the slide. Choose which kind of disk, but is really simple. You can use automatic mode, and it takes each disk, each free disk. There is no option. You have to start from scratch. You can migrate something from local storage to vSAN. Disks must be scratched, and you start from scratch. So you don't have any option on this. Then you can choose the different policies for your VM, and you can choose how stripe the data, how failure you want to tolerate, so which kind of data redundancy you will have, if you want to have some kind of reservation on space in the capacity layer or in the flash layer, and so on. So are just simple policies that you can build to each VM, or just build one and attach to your VM. Of course, you can have different policies for different VMs according to your business needs. So in the last minute is for all. Isn't too much. This probably it depends also by the costs. Okay, it's not so costly, but it's not cheap. But history tells that also other products maybe are sold with an initial price, and then this price can change.
So this feature is not included in the enterprise?
It's not included in any package, actually.
Okay.
And what are
Yeah.
the prices?
In VDI,
Is like
in VDI it's,
VDI, yes, because you can use for VDI, but it's the only bundle where you have.
Is it free for VDI?
yeah, for
You pay,
It's in the package.
You pay for
in the
VDI
package.
before, so-
You pay for VDI, but it is,
If I got a customer with their review,
It's an interesting case.
yeah, that's
Absolutely.
because we have now 3 hosts with local storage.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'm
You can
bothering with
compare.
is maintenance.
Yeah.
If I can use it for maintenance, I put some spindles with the discs in the host, and I should be, but then free.
yeah, it's
Yeah, in
free.
this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
fine.
included already, you have it.
Yeah.
You have it and it's there.
You
Just
get
with the
the enterprise plus.
Otherwise,
incentives.
is sold by socket. So how much socket do you have in your cluster? You cannot have some cluster node that cannot provide the storage. So actually, all nodes must be licensed for vSAN. But anyway, as I say, can maybe next version or
You have to begin from
some-
scratch.
Yeah, exactly,
Alright.
exactly.
It's not
Awesome.
Alright.
It's too complicated, probably not, is maybe, probably too simple. Is usable, good question, is version 1.0 actually. So is scary enough, not so much because was probably the longest data data period for a VMware product, close to 1 year, and a lot of people has also build a big and huge cluster there, collect a lot of data, and seems interesting. Of course, a good design is really important. Existing storage cannot be used. Local storage must be scratched down. So
Yeah.
what you have is not useful for not an important note. vSAN data store is just a data store. You can have additional data store from other storage, other.
So I could use small form factor computing nodes with JBods.
Yeah.
You can use a small factor computer, but you still need local storage.
Yeah, but the local storage could be provided by JBod, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. In this case, yes.
with SAS controllers.
Yes, but
yeah.
JBod anyway takes 2 unit, a small size storage 1 unit, so probably you will lose 1 unit. But with some big JBod with internal disks like up mounting, probably you can have more space. But anyway.
But you have to check if it gets too much space, you get a problem when it goes down. and
Exactly.
It needs to copy
You have,
everything, so you have to
more
balance
you
that.
need more time for maintenance. Usually is a scale out approach.
Yeah.
You must go, of course, license could be a problem, but you must go on scale out approach. 3 node is really the minimum. But of course, what's happening?
Is it really the minimum because of data security, or is it because the license or
No, no.
setup will actually work? Will
Data
not-
security actually. They,
So I
they
can
want
build a
to
lab
take
with 2
care-
nodes? No.
Technically could be possible doing something with 2 nodes, but you cannot do
A
any
lab.
maintenance
Yes.
on this. So then they actually don't want
Okay.
to provide a 2 node version.
Okay.
And it's funny because there was a previous product called VSA that was based on virtual appliance that starts from 2 node to maximum 3. This kind of product is no more available. And there isn't any suggestion of which kind of product could be the best replacement. vSAN could be 1, but of course you need 3 nodes.
Yeah.
Otherwise you have to use other type of